Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a first look at finally something huge and something really rather exciting. We're going to be getting some Ensk map changes. And I don't just mean little map changes. I mean Big Ensk is becoming a thing. We are getting 1000 by 1000 meter Ensk. This on the screen currently right here is what we currently have. You have your city brawl, you have your railway lines, and then you have your feet. Well, yeah, that's changing, and this is what we're getting. We are, in a sense, getting a brand new map. This is the new 1000 by 1000 meter Big Ensk, and there's a lot to cover, and I'm going to do my best to try and cover this as quickly as possible in as much detail as possible. So, let me get my pen out and we're going to do some annotation. So, we have a brand new city area with some pretty significant reworks focused around kind of like these areas here and some kind of whole new positions over here to fight in. Really quite exciting. We have had a whole new area down here added. Massive. We have had this field area over here extended massively, creating whole new angles of fire. Similarly, we've had the entire back of the map over here extended, creating whole new fire and fight. So, let's break it down. First of all, starting off with looking at the city. So, this is the new extended city from North. This is going to basically be the spawn. So, whereas previously, basically the back of the map kind of existed to be like here. Yeah, that's no longer going to be a thing. And we are now basically going to have whole new positions to play in over kind of back here, which is quite exciting. So, one of the things that I'm going to note straight away is there looks like there's going to be positions to play into over here. It's going to be interesting with some kind of like corridor style gameplay going on over here. And I can already hear you all in the comments going, oh no, not more corridor style gameplay. Well, I think at the end of the day, on a map, a city map like this, it's not true corridor gameplay because there are plenty of positions, plenty of angles to create flanking plays, and that is not in the definition of corridor style map. So, straight away from back here, we can see they have managed to retain the original TD position, which covers this entire corridor here. Okay, that's good. There's going to be new positions to maybe make some kind of defensive holds in over here. It's going to be interesting, kind of like a cubby hole, which people are going to have to push to kill you. There is also going to be some kind of new holding position back here, which looks like it's going to provide covering fire on anything that tries to push out of here. That's okay in my opinion. Similarly, you've got this kind of window down here, as well as you've got the window here. That's okay. We've also got some kind of new holding position around here, which look like they're going to provide fire on anything that's pushed out of this here. Okay, this looks pretty interesting. It's a lot of diverse angles of fire. It's bigger, first of all, so, if you are an artillery player, you have the position to play back here, back here. There are new positions for you to play, and I know you will watch these videos, so there you go. You can now finally play Ensk. But for every single other person that has working arms, yeah, this map now has a lot more diversity. So let's now have a look at the city from the south. So straight away, we can kind of get a little bit of a better idea what this corridor over here is actually going to look like. And it looks quite straight. And, I don't really know what to think about that because that is a little bit too corridory in my opinion. Maybe having some kind of like house to break it up in the middle, kind of create flanking plays, I feel like would be slightly better. But there are positions, where you can play along this. I'm thinking already where I could maybe begin to side scrape. There's a position here, side scrape off, maybe here as well. Definitely off here, maybe here. There are definitely positions that you play looking down this kind of corridor from the south. But Where are the new lines of fire? Well, immediately I'm picking out this. This is a direct counter to over there. There is now going to be a window and a defensive position that watches and basically, in a sense, denies this entire corridor from both. I think that's okay, but it also is going to kind of be a little bit, you know, at the end of the day, it's not going to be it's not going to be conducive to people making flanking. You're going to want to cross over from this part of the city into this part of the city. There is 100% going to be something sat here, and you are going to take damage for crossing over. So I don't really know what to think about that. I think maybe a better solution and maybe a better thing to do would be to basically just build a house and plonk a house like here. There you go. I've drawn my little house. I'll draw a door on it for you. Basically, just to prevent these lines of fire and allow tanks to kind of cross over either side. I think that is a slightly more diverse style of gameplay. But, that's open to interpretation. But definitely from this south side, there are, similar to the north as well, there are a lot of new positions that are available to play to make defensive holds from, here, for example. We're looking down here as well. Looks like there's some kind of window that covers crossfire over here. We've got some kind of destructive buildings back here for TEs. These houses down here look maybe interesting for finding some covering fire over the rails, which have had a massive change. Similarly, this way. And we've had our old-fashioned window retained, which is down there. So, let's have a little bit more of a detailed look now at the city. This is the city from south. If you are playing the southern spawn, they have basically opened up the city. They've removed quite a lot of buildings. There used to be a building which yep. And these whole gaps here used to be a lot narrower. What they've kind of done is made it a little bit more of an open kind of brawl where the most aggressive team will probably win it. Which I don't particularly know what to think about. Because at the end of the day, this entire cross here from the northern team is just suicide. Similarly, this entire cross is just suicide, because there is going to be at least 2 tanks sat in here. There is at least going to be 1 tank sat here. And, you're going to cross, and they're just going to melt you this entire cross. And it's just going to make, basically, 2 positions that are just not playable, because, this entire box here is just a death zone. Similarly, there's going to be one on this side, which is a death zone. And it's going to probably be quite stale in this part of the city, where it's probably going to be, it's definitely going to be a little bit more like Berlin. If any of you have played Berlin, it's basically a tank sits here and just watches 2 crossing angles, and the enemy team kind of do exactly the same. They'll sit with 1 tank in here, and they will just also watch exactly the same crossing angles. And then you'll probably have like tanks here and here trying to make some side scraping plays, but they're just going to be shot at by tanks that are above them and probably penetrated. So that doesn't look particularly great in my opinion. It looks quite stagnant, a bit stale, and it's basically just contributing to the return of the hull down meta by having just tanks that just sit opposite each other and go, well, fuck you, really. So I don't really know what to think about that. Well, let's have a look at it from north now. So this is the city from north, and we are seeing, once again, a position for tanks to sit pull down. So we'll down annotation. Don't really know what to think about that. There's probably a position for a tank to play hull down here as well. Not particularly great, especially when you consider that these just watch into these angles once again, just creating these death zones where tanks just cannot go because they're just going to bleed, and it's going to be quite stale. Once again, I'm just going to reiterate: this style of gameplay in this city is going to be stale. It's just tanks of not peeking for the fear of taking damage, and I don't think that's particularly great gameplay, and it is just going to be negative. So Let's have a kind of change of pace now, and let's change our pen color to light blue. Let's have a look at the rails. So whereas previously the rails was completely blocked off and you could not do well, now you can. They've taken definitely some influence from Onslaught here, where the rails are opened up, and now you can rotate across the rails. Say, for example, your team wins this flank, whereas previously you would have had to have done this, and the enemy team would have just made a hold here, and you would not be able to just cross because they will just kill you. Now you can just decide, well, fuck you, really. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be intelligent, and you go like this, and like this, and like this. And you can just, instead of pushing into a just death zone up here, you can now push multiple and win flank. And it's exactly the same story for the other team. They can push this side instead of just dying here in this kind of death zone. They can push multiple different angles and create diverse flanking gameplay, which I think is positive. And it's kind of like strange because so far we've seen them be pretty willing to create very stale gameplay over here in the city, but then they've decided to create very diverse, open flanking gameplay over here on the rails. It's quite contradictory, so I don't really know what to think about that. But personally, I think this is a great change. I really been calling for many, many, many years that wargaming open up the rails just because it creates so much more diverse flanking styles of gameplay that just weren't available previously, and you can now dig out some pretty horrendous holds. Tanks are definitely going to kind of just sit in this whole area down here. You can approach from multiple different angles using build the railway cars to protect it. I think that's really quite good and a good change. So let's now move on from the city, which I will give my overall conclusionary opinion on in a minute, and have a look at the field. Well, the field has seen a massive change. Whereas previously the border basically used to lie along here, now we've got this whole area over here that is now extended. We have got this area down here, which we're not going to look at all, because it's unchanged. That has not changed. The only things we have seen changed are some small positions in the middle of the field here. So we have a new house here with some new bushes for light tanks to play. We have got some new routes down here into a new building. We have then similarly got this whole new area over here with water and everything else, and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots, which we're going to have a look at in a little bit of detail. So from the northern side, there are the old original positions house to play, which provide lots of cover fire down in multiple positions. So this is going to be a TD haven, but that was always pretty much always the case. Whereas now we are going to basically have a lot more diverse range of positions. Hull downs to play, hull downs to play, bushes to play, TD positions to play, aggressive positions to push into. So let's have a look at what it actually means. South then. So we have got a kind of mirror. We have a building with bushes either side for TD to play and provide cover shots on. Similarly, we have the same over here with bushes for light tanks or TDs to play, which provide covering fire. But then we also have this kind of aggressive spots where tanks can take into and play, and then we also have this bush line here with some kind of like building in. So let's see what it means from the. So we get a nice, lovely side-on view now of kind of this whole new. So teams from the south can push down here, and teams from the north can push down here. This water is crossable. Here, crossable, and here, it's crossable. And there are a number of positions over here which look maybe semi-playable, however, very much counterable from up here. At the end of the day, this is low ground. And low ground is always and always will be countered by high ground, which is up here. And there are lots and lots and lots of bushy positions up here that light tanks could play, which are going to get really good vision out onto this field. And I feel like in practice, despite this looking like a very good idea and lots of lovely play, houses to play, to play in and around. Yes, they're destructible, but houses to play in and around. In reality, I think what's going to happen is you're just going to have a light tank YOLO here, a light tank YOLO here. They will just spot any tank crossing over, which will then probably just get evaporated from like here and from probably here, as tanks just do this. And crossing is just going to be very risky. Yeah, there's probably going to be more positions for light tanks to play, and it might be more of a light tank kind of where you kind of take over to this bush here, maybe this here, and get some really good vision out on this. But obviously, if they just push this, so I don't really know what to think right now of this water side. I think it's probably a little bit too open. There could maybe do with some kind of like connection here. Maybe a bridge here. Like, that would be quite nice. That might be quite cool. Some kind of like a ramp or a bridge, something which, has like pillars on it to block lines of fire. That might be quite interesting. Kind of allowing tanks to play this side, like, and not get shot at massively. I think like some kind of like a bridge cross here might be beneficial, but we'll have to wait and see. That's a thing. But let's kind of have a look at this kind of this side from the northern side a little bit more focused. We can kind of definitely see how it's going to be vulnerable. It's so much more of a low ground at the end of the day compared to the high ground, which is up here. And it is just going to lead to the high ground shooting down onto the low ground. And, there's not really much you can do about it. There's no real hiding places or haul downs or physical places you can fall back into over here. So you are just going to be on the low ground and getting shot at. So not really sure about that. But this position here definitely holds some promise, in my opinion. It's just going to be kind of like the center point, the kind of focal point of a lot of fights in the field. Is going to be teams kind of playing these bushes here and these bushes here. And then aggressive medium tanks pushing down, into here. And then having some kind of like a brawl in this zone here as they kind of try and fight for control of the water side and the ability to shoot down over onto the water. This whole position here looks quite diverse. Lots of side scraping positions, potential haul downs, maybe here's a haul down, here, yeah, potentially. But then there's also positions to create nice flanking plays. So say, for example, the enemy team has won the position up here. You can push low and you can take underneath the ridgeline here and be safe from T shots. Maybe you can push down here and play this area here and shoot up. There are a lot of diverse flanking positions. I think this is quite nice. And as I kind of said earlier, it's quite strange because Wargaming have quite clearly wanted to have this kind of corridor style gameplay over here. Like, very corridor, but then they want this very diverse style flanking gameplay over here. And the two never really work particularly well together because diverse gameplay is always more enjoyable, more fun. So what it's going to lead to happening is tanks just playing the field instead of playing, the city. And that just means you end up with a small Ensk again, but just on a field instead of a city. So I don't think that's particularly great in my opinion. And, I just feel like this field holds so much potential. There's lots of like nice TD play, lots of positions to push into and safe from counter TD, playing underneath ridge lines where TD might be, playing up to houses and having brawls with medium tanks, maybe even heavy tanks. Yeah, I think this field holds a lot of value and a lot of potential, but I just feel like it's going to be countered by the fact that City is just not playable, unfortunately. So, here are my conclusions. I think the city needs a lot of work, so I'm going to kind of do this. Okay? I'm going to box off the bits that I think I need in red. I think this whole area needs kind of rework. It's too corridor based at the end of the day, and whilst I'm not the biggest hater of corridor maps, I think that this is too corridor mappy, and we don't like that. But then in green, I'm gonna kind of do this. I think this whole side, apart from that kind of island, is great. It's diverse, creates lots of flanking positions, and there's lots of different styles of gameplay. And then in kind of a yellow, I'm going to kind of circle out this island because I think it needs some work. I think it needs some kind of rework to kind of make it a little bit more worth playing. It should be a risk reward. Currently, it's a risk with not much reward because you don't really get much from it. It's kind of an isolated fight. That's kind of my thoughts really on this new Ensk. I think it's got lots of promising features, especially this field rework, huge, and is going to offer a lot of different styles of gameplay, which I think is very positive. But I just think this field needs a big rework. I think it's just too corridor based, too stale. The gameplay is just going to be stale. And at the end of the day, nobody wants stale gameplay. And I think Big Ensk has a lot of potential, and I really hope they take some of this back on board and go away and actually work it. But there you go. That's my conclusionary thoughts on Big Ensk. Do let me know down in the comments what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree with me? Do you disagree with the fact that I think it's too corridor based? Whatever. Do let me know. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all again very soon.